things are going to get hard. It is going to be difficult. You're going to go through pain, and if you can get past that, then you start climbing up the next part of that roller coaster or that hill where you have informed optimism, and then you finally have success on the other side. But you can apply that to many different things. Now, for someone like myself who suffers from shiny object syndrome, I've gone through this thing way more times than I want to tell anyone. But to your point about, courses, programs, coaches, all that stuff out there. Some of it has value, some of it doesn't. But the main problem really comes down to, can you get past that informed pessimism and that dip? Do you have the guts and the fortitude to get past that point? The people that do are successful.
Today is 12/12/2024. And how's your year wrapped up? Did things happen to you? Did things happen for you? Are you ending the year as maybe a victim? Or do you have gratitude for whatever has transpired? I'm here today with Nate Shields, and he's going to share his journey of faith and family and finances and real estate investing, but ultimately a message to give you some hope and inspiration leading into the new year. Whatever happened, however the year's gone, focus on one thing, focus on gratitude. We're also going to talk about real estate investing and how to make money and how to run a mission and purpose-driven business and life. Check it out. Are you a faith-based father and you want to have the adventure of a lifetime with your son? You have to check out the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. June of 2025, I'm going to be taking a small group of fathers and sons over to Spain. We are going to spend 6 days, hike 70 miles, have some of Spain's most amazing cuisines, see some of the most beautiful places and spaces, but most importantly, spend time together bonding with our sons. If you're interested in this adventure, check out mattshoup.com. When you get to the website, click the Gentle Art of Leadership button and hover down to the father-son hike of a lifetime. Nate Shields.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming up.
Of course.
Drive from Denver.
Actually, Fort Collins.
Cut. Oh my goodness. I thought you were in Denver.
Nope.
All right.
Fort Collins.
Are we just going to run with that, Joey?
We should.
All right.
Run
Just
it.
beat me out because kids might watch this. I want to teach kids to invest. Man. Yeah. Why did I think you were in Denver?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. But that's how we first came to Colorado. Like when we were thinking about moving out of Madison, Wisconsin, we just came out here. We were looking for a change, and Colorado had always been an option after we were in Chicago, but we really liked Madison. I'm from Wisconsin. And so that was kind of we're going to retire here someday. And we decided, well, the kids are still young. Why don't we just try it and see what happens? They weren't in school yet. And so we moved up to Madison and really enjoyed it. But after a few years, and that was during the pandemic, we were kind of burned out of a few different things, even though we really enjoyed the people there and we were close to family. So we just flew out here, my wife and I did, and stayed in Denver. And we're like, okay, Denver's too big, too busy, and too expensive. Yeah. And so we went down to Colorado Springs, hung out there, and then up to Fort Collins. And I had a couple connections here as well that I knew had lived here or were living here. And I talked to them like, what's it like? And once we visited, we're like, yeah, this is our jam. So we've been here 2.5 years now.
So was it an instant fall in love with Fort Collins, Northern Colorado, or was it just, hey, I know it's not these places? Just curious, people that come here get attracted to it for different reasons.
Right. Yeah. It's very different from the upper Midwest, whole life, Wisconsin and Illinois, so flat for the most part.
Cold,
cloudy.
Friendly people.
Oh yeah. Friendly people. Chicago can be a little bit different vibe sometimes, but yeah, for the most part, upper Midwest is pretty friendly. But we did find that when we came out here, everyone was super friendly. Everyone's saying hi, strangers are saying hi, talking to you. And my wife is more gregarious than I am. And so she's like, this is great. You're the
introvert?
Yeah, I'm the introvert. We're actually the same personality type. If you're familiar with like Myers-Briggs, we're the same personality type, except I'm the introvert and she's the extrovert.
Okay.
So I'm an INFP, she's an ENFP.
Okay.
The good and the bad of that is that we get along fantastically. The problem is we have all the same weaknesses. So
get along fantastically, very quietly.
Well,
being the introvert,
being the introvert, yeah. But she, we share the same benefits of those personality types, and then the same downsides.
So Myers-Briggs, we do DISC combined with Human Motivators Index. So I know it from that perspective, but the IN is the introvert, and then the FT. What are the last two? Because I'm familiar with Myers-Briggs, but I don't know it like I know.
Yeah,
DISC.
and I'm not like an expert, but you got the I or the E is introvert or extrovert, and then you've got N is for intuition. You've got F is feeling, P is perceiving.
Okay.
S is sensing, T is thinking, J is judging. And so you can have one of the two letters, and you can also kind of be on a continuum.
Got it.
So what's really helpful about those types of things like DISC and Myers-Briggs, though, is if you go online, usually you can find a free version of the test to take. You take it, and then you can find, usually within the same site or somewhere, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? And what was really helpful for me was what would you actually be good at, And I wish I would have had that in high school and college because I didn't know, I was like lost, and like what I wanted. I was never like, I'm going to go be a doctor. I know what the track is. I never had that kind of vision.
They push you to try to figure it out in high school, but don't teach you who you are. At least that was my upbringing. I don't know about you. They say, what do you want to do? You go, I don't know who I am. So how do I know what I want to do or if I'll be good at that?
Right. Yeah. You're still trying to figure a lot of stuff out. So I wish I would have had that in college because that would have made things a lot more clear for me. Because INFP specifically is more a creative type. And a lot of the jobs that make sense are like writer, poet, musician, film, acting, that type of stuff. And had I known that a little bit more and been a little more self-aware when I was younger too, which is kind of hard sometimes, but I probably would have gone more the music route. Because in college I studied biblical studies and philosophy and psychology. Really only because I wanted to learn more about it, and I had grown up in a Christian home.
Not with a clear end path
not
of
with a clear
pastor
I was
some vocation.
A year or two into it, I was like, I do not want to be a pastor.
Why not?
I could just tell that vocationally it was not going to be a good fit for me. I was more curious I actually got more into psychology, and so I almost double majored in that, and I considered going to grad school to be a counselor, which actually is another good fit for an INFP.
Yeah.
But one thing that happened in college, 2 years into it, and I had to pick a major by then, and then I was on that track, and I'm like, I'm just going to do it, because kind of, this is a while back, I'm a little bit older. A while back, it's your parents told you to go to college so you can get a degree so you can get a good job.
Yes.
Right?
Parents and schools and everybody, right?
And a lot of people still think that. And I think that was kind of on the cusp of kind of not being as true because, you had the internet and then you had YouTube that came out and all of a sudden you can learn all these things on your own time and in your own way and find out what you're good at, find out what you like, what you're interested in. And so I got the degree thinking I'm just going to get a job, and I didn't know like what. I had no idea. And so I just kind of fell into some nepotism. My dad was a manager at a company, and I worked for them for a while. And that was kind of that. But kind of going back to the 2 years into college, they actually started a program around music ministry. And had that been there at the beginning, because I was really into music, I probably would have gone that route and been, like a worship pastor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. You kind of does he look like he could be a worship pastor? Look at it. Look at that camera.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's interesting. So similar story. I'm at CSU and I love kids and working with kids. And I was going to be an elementary school teacher. Did you know this? I don't know if Joey knew this, but love working with kids. I've worked with them ever since high school, translating Spanish. And they launched an elementary ed program my senior year. And I had already studied in Spain and packed in quite a bit of credits. So I'm like, great, I'll just go knock out. I like to just knock stuff out. Did the real estate in like 12 days and just knock it out. They're like, you can't. You have to do the cohort and do another 3.5 years. So I didn't do that, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm a teacher. Yeah.
Teaching is a tough gig. I mean, my wife has been a teacher for 20 years.
I get to teach on the jiu-jitsu mats, but in my own way, in my own terms, and there's no politics, and we don't do that. And some of the stuff I just saw, I taught after school Spanish in the schools, and some of the things that happen, I'm like, it's preventing me from helping teach your kid. Just let me teach your kid.
Right.
But then you got to handle all the side conversations and agendas, and we don't do that here in the business. I can't stand that stuff.
Yeah.
So
the bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy and drama, and just this parent gives this money to this school, so their kid needs to be treated differently. I'm like, no. So
yeah.
Quick thing on the personality style though. A quick shameless plug. You can get it at mattshoup.com. Get the free tools, and I do a DISC leadership language survey. So that's totally free on my site. Wanted to talk about how we got connected though, because we have a mutual friend in Sarah Jane and the Foundry. They're a partner and sponsor of the podcast. And how long have you been with them? How did you come across Foundry?
It's only been a few months since I've joined. I think I was searching up for some different business networking groups. I just wanted to get more involved in the community, get to know some people. Found a couple different ones, and I think an ad was served up to me, and I think it was either Rob or Hunter had said, "Oh yeah, we just started that." It was like the day they had just like launched the ads, and so I was one of the first people that made contact, and I met with Rob.
Their ad.
Yeah, through the ad.
Okay.
On Facebook or Instagram, and met with Rob and hit it off, and it seemed like a good fit. And so I think I've only been at 3, monthly meetings at this point, but it's been amazing.
So what Foundry is, just for people listening, it's a peer advisory group, right, for business owners that are Christians. And there's a lot of peer advisory groups. There's EOs and Vistages and just all these masterminds and groups, but many don't layer the faith component over that. So you go in and there's very much that structure of, a mastermind or a peer group. You check in, there's accountability, there's learning, but then it's all related to, hey, we're all the people of the same faith, and it just hits at a different level. How's that impacted your business, just being short time with them in the Foundry?
I think, first of all, it's totally my jam, because it's like you're blending a really cohesive small group with business. And I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to just learning different things about marketing, about sales, about all the different aspects of what can happen. And so when we go around the group and we're talking about our needs, we're talking about our businesses, and, oftentimes someone will be presenting either their entire business and then they have a big question, or we'll kind of round robin it and say, what do we need now? What's a big ask? And honestly, that's how I got it on the podcast.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, it's because
you asked to be on my podcast.
I said, hey, yeah, exactly. I said I would like to be on more podcasts, and Sarah Jane happened to be there. She's not usually there. Yeah, she kind of hops around to the different groups. She happened to be there. She's like, I'll connect you with Matt.
What a coincidence, right?
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Love it. Now we're here. Joey, I'm thinking about this for 2025. We were just talking offline about ways to make the podcast better. I love to just do live plugs for our partners and sponsors. What do you think? Does that make your job easier?
It works.
Should we do it right here? Should we cut to it or just do it live?
I could cut to it. I can do it.
Because you do the fun music, right? You do the fun music.
I do some fun Spanish style guitar music over it, So
shout out to the Foundry, right? Christian peer advisory group run by 2 amazing men, and Sarah Jane and other people that are leaders in the community. Like, they're building up the Christian community within business, making business better, faith better, and it's open, and there's spots for businesses to join, and it's super impactful. So check them out today at thefoundryadvisory.com. They have a retreat coming up next year in June, and that's going to be an awesome one. Who's speaking there? Called to Create. Jordan Rayner.
I believe that's right.
Yeah, Jordan Rayner, Called to Create. Check it out. They're booking up right now.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
How's that commercial? Is that okay?
It was solid. No mess ups. One take.
So you line up here, land here, get settled. When did the real estate come into the picture?
Yeah, so kind of going back a little bit further, after college, got that job, and this was before remote work was even a thing. But most of the team, the marketing team I was part of, was remote, which was cool because I got to set my own hours. I was living in the Chicago area at the time. And it kind of spoiled me a little bit, because I got used to being able to have that flexibility. And I guess even going back even further than that, if you go pre-college, I was homeschooled most of my life. So I was homeschooled from 4th grade on because I had some health issues. And that kind of ruined me too from the standpoint of freedom, right? And so my life was kind of always like, hey,
freedom to leave your space or just interact with the world? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, freedom, like time freedom.
Okay.
You know, it's like this does not have to necessarily be done right now or
gotcha.
today.
Okay.
So you just prioritize the things you need to get done. And most of the time when I was a kid, you know, I could get done by noon or 1 o'clock with all my, you know, schoolwork. And then I was free to do whatever I wanted. And, you know, I grew up in a small town in northern Wisconsin. So I'd usually just go ride my bike on the snowmobile trails or go play in the woods or play basketball or, you know, do what I wanted to do. And so that gave me a lot of freedom. And then after college, having that job, that also gave me a lot of freedom because it's kind of non-traditional start to things. But I wasn't happy in that job. The job itself was kind of a dead end, you know, marketing, somewhat administrative, which is not a strength of mine. Yeah. And so I got involved in a multi-level marketing company.
Here comes Joey. Here comes Joey.
I did one too.
Which one? Do we want to share?
Sure. Yeah, I can share. I don't even know if they're still in existence. Primerica.
Yeah, they're around.
Financial services.
They still are.
Yeah. So they do like insurance and they help people get out of debt and stuff like that. And so that appealed to me. But the one thing, and I didn't last long in that, but the one thing that I got out of it was I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yes.
Those 2 books changed my life. Now, they didn't change my life for about a decade, but they changed my life nonetheless because it made me look at business and entrepreneurial activities where before I was just looking like, can I just get a better job? Can I get a higher paying job, something I enjoy more?
The employee box, right? Trade time for money.
Exactly.
The E, right? Top left corner.
Right. Yeah. So that the cash flow quadrant spoke more to me because once I saw that chart, I was like, okay, I'm an employee. How do I become self-employed? And then how do I go to business owner? And then how do I go to investor?
Yes.
And how can I do that as quickly as possible? So unfortunately, things didn't go quickly for me. Maybe I'm a slow learner, but that stuck in my head. And another thing that stuck in my head too was because he did talk a little bit about real estate in the books, that it would be cool to have, 10 or 20 rental properties. After 20, 30 years, they're paid off and I have that cash flow. Like everyone understands real estate, right? And that's why I think it's attractive to so many people. Yeah. Everyone pays rent or pays a mortgage, lives somewhere, and it's just easy to understand. And so I think that's why a lot of people get attracted to it. So that's what attracted me to real estate. And the first time I really thought about it was not the best time. It was around the Great Recession. I had met with a real estate broker.
07, 08.
Yeah, it was like, it was probably right after. It was probably 09.
Okay.
And things were still kind of bad in a lot of different ways. And my hours at work had been cut. And I was looking for some other opportunities, but specifically, I was like, well, I don't know if real estate's the best fit. I want to start part-time, and so I met with a broker and he talked me out of it. Basically, he's like, well, it's really hard. It's expensive. It's, you got all these desk fees and yada, yada, yada. And anyway, he talked me out of it. I'm like, well, I really want to just do it part-time just to see if I'm even good at it or can do it. And another year went by and I saw in a alumni LinkedIn group that someone had posted about being a part-time real estate agent. I was like, I got to meet this guy. We have that common connection of the same school. And so I had breakfast with him. Within a few months, I was licensed. And
so in a couple months, you went from meet to licensed.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
What was the class schedule or the classes like? 'Cause I talked to a lot of people getting into real estate or thinking about it. You can do online, you can do in person. I'm a hack, kind of like to hack through stuff, just get it done because I know you don't use it anyway for most of the things. You don't in real estate. So I locked myself in the house for 12 days and then went and barely passed. I passed national, barely passed the state. Mm-hmm. And my buddy's like, don't worry, you're not going to use that anyway. And then you're licensed to take care of somebody's biggest investment. And it's serious.
Yeah.
How did you do it?
Yeah. At the time, I did just a self-study. And it took me a little bit of time to get through the material and whatnot, but I was able to pass my first time there, and Illinois is not as difficult as Colorado. But I was able to pass, got started, and then within 8 months, I'd quit my job and went full-time as an agent.
Okay. What brokerage were you with?
I was just with the independent. So the guy that, just a local independent. Cool. His dad had started it, decades ago, and then he kind of took it over, and it was just small, just a couple agents.
So right now, so you're at 09 doing this. We're coming out of a really interesting time. It's a different kind of adjustment and correction that was made. So somebody's getting into it. What were the couple things that you did to find success, or maybe things you did that you'd recommend not to do if it didn't work? Right. Just for somebody getting in now, knowing everything you know, new agent, they're walking out, coming into 2025 with their license. What would you recommend for 2025 to be successful?
I would, there's a few ways to kind of go about it. You need to educate yourself. Forget almost everything except for all the ethics part of that.
Don't forget ethics.
Don't forget the ethics part. Just be a good person, be honest in your dealings, follow all the ethical guidelines. But everything else that you learn in the real estate class does not set you up for success in the actual business. The average agent only sells 3 or 4 houses a year, makes maybe 30 grand or something like that, depending on where they're at. So that's not what most people are looking for usually when they're getting into it. So you got to treat it like a business. And the most successful agents I've talked with, they do treat it like a business. They're like, well, I went to the office at 7 a.m., started hitting the phones or whatever their lead gen is, some door knock, some cold call, some just network, some use paid leads and other marketing tactics. And you can combine a lot of things together, but really I think you should find 1 or 2, maybe 3 things that you think will work and you have a skill set around, and do that as much as you can, because your job is to drum up new business.
It's interesting. So in painting and anything, we talk about this a lot with business. I just say, find that one thing that you love. It's different. It breaks the noise. It gets the attention, and just do it, 1,000 times. Talk to an agent. I tried this 4 times and that 4 times, did 1.5 open houses, and I'm until you do it 1,000 times. Just go do it.
Right.
And then measure it. And if it doesn't work, try something else and get creative, and then track it. And you have this list of the best ROI, and the bottom one's always falling off or becoming obsolete. The Dex phone book for my painting company, M&E Painting in 05, you would fight for space in the Dex phone book. It was this big. And it was based on seniority of how long your ad was there, how big it was, and if it was full color. So if you were there the longest, full color, front page, you got the front spot. And then somebody's like, well, I just made a name that was A+ painting, and I got in front of all of them anyway on the listing. Right. But that Dex phone book just became smaller. Is the paint or roof on your home or business starting to look a little shabby? If so, reach out to one of our sponsors, M&E Painting and Roofing. M&E Painting and Roofing is a full-service residential and commercial painting and roofing contractor in Northern Colorado. And full disclosure, I'm the M in M&E. Check them out at mandepainting.com. Are you a small business trying to navigate all of the landscape of digital marketing and don't know where to go? Reach out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. They are the go-to source for all things digital marketing. They are the producers of this podcast, and they run all of the marketing for all of my companies. Check them out at imprint-digital.com. What would you say now would be something you could try as a marketing tactic that you couldn't have tried in 09? It's just all the new technology. Where does AI fit into this? That's the new up-and-coming thing.
One thing you have to have as an agent is a CRM.
Yeah.
You gotta keep track of all your leads, all your clients, all your sphere, and it's gotten a lot smarter and better because of AI and competition and things like that. Honestly, when I was doing it, I didn't really have a CRM. I'm not the most organized person in the world when it comes to some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I would just keep a spreadsheet, keep it in my head. These were my people, my leads. I was able to track stuff in some different ways too, but you got to have a CRM, and most of them do have AI tools now that, like, even chat bots that can talk to leads either on the front end or revive old leads that maybe came through. You got to find a good CRM. One that I'm actually using for a different business. And I talked with another marketing guy in real estate recently. He highly recommends Go High Level. It's
I heard about that yesterday.
yeah, they're a great company. They move very quickly.
Are they paying you to say this?
No, they're not paying
They should
me.
pay you. Go High Level. Come on. You like
Be a
them though?
sponsor.
Because I'm doing
so
my
far,
real estate that way. I have my sphere. I literally print up mail labels, and that reminds me to call people. I send a note. I'm kind of old school, and it works for me. But
Yeah.
I can miss things. So you like Go High Level?
Yeah, Go High Level's good. Brivity is really good as well. And then depending on what your brokerage might offer, like, some have their own CRMs that they're tied into. So definitely check. You got to have one, and you got to get good at it, and it's going to help you. It's going to help you build your business.
So educating, getting to work, picking some things, marketing, working your butt off, be organized, have a CRM. And then I'd also say learn from people. Don't be jealous of the top agent. Go see what they do. And most of the top agents will just stop whatever they're doing, the good ones, right? And they'll just show you everything. They'll open up their business.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't see it as competition. When you can work in an environment where it's competition, but it's not. It's still abundance mindset. That's been important.
And there's a couple different ways to do it too, especially when you're getting started. You can really just go the solo agent route. I mean, you're still going to be under a broker and a managing broker. But you can also join a team.
Yeah.
So that's almost more beneficial, I think, to some newbies because they'll get probably a little bit more training and they'll have access to some of the leads that the team is bringing in. Now, you're going to give up some of your commission split because of that, because they're paying lots of money to bring in more leads and they're going to have more tools and training for you. But that can be a good way to get started, get into a team, see how it works. Because usually they have a team because they're efficient at those processes. And if you learn those processes within the team, then after a couple of years, maybe you go out and you just kind of replicate that on your own.
Yeah. So that's the producing agent side, right? You have a license, you're helping people buy and sell, to live in, to invest. Maybe you're buying some investments, but what you're really here, what you're really doing today at a big level is multifamily investment and syndication. And you're working on a really big project right now. Right. This is airing mid-December, and what is it? You're raising up 1.2 million.
We're raising
by end of the year.
We're raising $5 million in equity, and we need another 1.2 in the next couple of weeks here. Yeah. So to kind of lead up to that, though, being an agent, I didn't know anything about investing in real estate. I was just concentrating on growing my business and selling. The first 2 years. But then 2 years into it, I had a property manager friend. He texted me a podcast, Bigger Pockets podcast. Bigger Pockets podcast. He's like, have you ever listened to this? And I was just getting done with a showing. And I threw it on in my car on my way home. And I was like, holy cow, what is this? And so I listened. I think this was roughly 2015. And it was probably around episode 100, 105 on Bigger Pockets. It was way back.
105 and 15. Okay.
Yep.
When did they start? Well, were they one a week?
At the time, I believe it was one a week.
So a couple of years in.
Yeah. Now they do like, 10 a week.
Any investor that invests in anything has listened to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Bigger Pockets. I give them a ton of credit because I listened to all those podcasts. I went backwards all the way to number one. And I read a couple books. And I talked with my buddy who was a financial planner. I'm like, what do you think about real estate? Yeah. And he's like, well, we've actually, him and his brother-in-law and his family had already been doing some real estate. They had done some single family stuff and then also had some commercial assets as well. Yeah. But he wanted to do kind of his own thing as well on the side. And so we met and pooled our minds and our money, and we've been in partnership ever since. So that's how we got started. So the first property we ever bought, it was just a single family foreclosure.
Tell me that deal. Like break that deal down, because there's a lot of people listening. I'm thinking the individual people that I've talked to about this and just who the audience is. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I have a lot of employees that have left being employees where they trade their time for money. And they think business owners, but they're not. They're just self-employed. They have nobody else. They're solopreneurs. So now they're just trading more of their time for money, and their boss is sometimes not as cool. It's you. You're your own boss. And crossing that line to business owners, leveraging other people and systems. And then you get into that investing. So a lot of business owners, solopreneurs are talking about the investing because they're making money, whether they're solo or they're building a team. Just take me through that first deal. When was it? What were the numbers? How did it work for you?
Yeah, so this would have been 2016. And it was a single family foreclosure. There was still a lot in the area I was. It was kind of very far west Chicago. It was an hour and a half west. So kind of ex-suburban type of area that I was living in. And so I sourced the property. I always had my eyes on stuff. And it was an unbelievably outdated shape. I mean, it had two pictures of that, like one of the kitchen and one of the exterior kind of thing. And the kitchen cabinets had wallpaper on them.
Ooh, those are the good ones, huh?
Yeah.
Two pictures.
Those are the good ones. Yeah.
Wallpaper on the cabinets.
That was one of my hacks back then for looking for properties. If it has one or no pictures, I'm like, that's going to be a good one. So checked it out. Yeah. It was full gut. So we bought it so first there was an online auction. So we put in our numbers there. It didn't sell, and they were actually coming. It was like a regional auction company. They would go around the Midwest doing different foreclosure sales. So they were actually coming to Chicago, and we had to go in person to the auction sale. And so we were in a room full of people, and it's our first investment property.
Paddles,
we had
like
paddles. Yeah, we had paddles.
Yeah.
We had the paddles, and we're in a room, and there's people there, and we're like, oh my gosh, like.
Did you have the micro machines guy up there? Do you remember the micro machines guy? I don't know. Was it like that, or was it pretty fast for you?
It was fast. And on the way there, it was kind of a long drive for us. We're like, okay, we were nervous, excited. How high do we go? And our number was kind of like high 50s or around 60,000 for this particular property. And we got there, and it was the last property to be auctioned, and there were still people sitting there. I'm like, okay, so we're going to have to compete. And, these guys were going up to like 58, 60, and then they kind of stopped. And we kind of looked at each other, and we're like, I think we can go just a little bit more, because our strategy was just buy and hold, right? We kind of assumed that the other guys were just flippers. So their margin has to be, they're doing a quick flip. They need to know that they're going to make their money within the next 6 months. For us, if we pay an extra $1,000 or $2,000, we can stomach that because we're going to hold this property for years. So we paid $62,000 for it. We got it. And then we started the whole remodel, and that's a whole nother thing, working with the contractor for the first time, and made a lot of mistakes there. And
so you've got sourcing, right? So to flip or invest, you got to source it. You got to find the deal. Mm-hmm. Some people are good at that. That's a strength for some. And then you need the money. Where'd the money come from?
Good question. So we each put in a chunk of money, and we started the LLC, and we talked with a commercial lender. We're like, we don't have enough money to buy cash, and we can't finance these properties. So what can we do?
Were they just not habitable?
Right.
Because of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So lending guidelines.
Yeah. It was foreclosure. Yeah.
Okay.
There were some, loans you could get, like a 203K loan and stuff like that back in the day. But yeah, we just wanted cash. We're going to do, the BRRRR strategy, which Bigger Pockets, kind of talks about, and so we're going to buy cash, refinance it once we get the tenant in place, and then move on to the next one, do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So we talked to the lender, and he's like, well, we can give you a little bit of money. We'll give you a multiplier on the cash that you guys have. So I think it was like 1.5x or something like that. And it was just enough to do this property. So it was $62,000, and then we put about 60 into it.
Okay.
And then it appraised for 150. We got a tenant in, and we had that tenant the entire time until we sold the property last year. So that was our first rental, our first experience there. But then I've obviously grown.
So flippers, right? You flip a home, you make one-time money.
Right.
You do a BRRRR, which is buy, renovate, rent.
Refinance,
Refinance,
repeat.
it appreciates, repeat. You take
Yep.
that money out and you really just start cycling
Recycle the money. Yeah.
that money. That's a longer term thing. It's like, do you want the big fast flip money? You know, do you want the cash flow or a little bit of everything? So that's a strategy just to keep building and rolling that snowball up and over the hill.
Right.
Really
and
cool.
it's and that strategy still, I mean, it still works. It's much harder nowadays, obviously with interest rates higher, with prices higher.
So you made 30,000, right? 60 buy, 60 in, and you're holding it. Obviously, you didn't resell it.
Yeah.
But
So
there's
we had
30 there.
We had like 30-ish equity, forced equity in that. So we were able to pull some money out, but it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. We went over budget, of course. I think we were planning on, 50.
Yeah.
And it was like 60. So, that was a problem. And then it took us a little bit longer. I was terrible at managing the contractor. And
Why?
here's a quick tip for anyone looking to hire contractors. So I had a client who was a successful business owner, and I asked him for a referral. I was like, do you know any good contractors? Because he owns some restaurants and he owns some properties, and like, who do you use? And I met the guy, and I had some other contractors come in and bid out the project, but he came in at a pretty favorable number. Plus, I liked him, and he had worked with this guy, and I just kind of took it at face value that he was going to be good at what he did, and then he wasn't. He was slow. He was always asking for money, and there was just not a lot of structure to the whole thing. So
That's like video producers.
We're the worst.
No, it's true, right? Just if you're a contractor, you're getting into that business, do what you say. Show up on time.
yeah,
Make a promise. Follow up.
yeah,
Like, don't be drunk when you get out there.
Right.
Don't scare the homeowners. And you're 80% of the way there.
right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with contractors: most of them are really good at what they do, but they suck at the business side.
Yes.
Right. So my little thing I learned eventually, because then I started flipping houses after this one as well, on just on my own outside of this partnership. I started a networking group, a real estate investor group, partially because there wasn't one close to me, and partially because I just wanted to control when we met, where we met, and what the topics were going to be and how it was going to run, And I met some people through that. And again, through Bigger Pockets, I'd posted the meetup there, and, I'd get 5 to 10 people, and met a guy who was flipping, and he wanted me to sell his latest flip. I looked at it and it was like gorgeous. And I was like, who's your contractor?
Mm-hmm.
And so I met with them, and they became my contractor for all my flips and and any other renovations that we needed on our rental properties as well. But the tip is, find a contractor who has either an admin or a superintendent or both. If they have that, they're running a business.
Yes.
If they don't, they're not. You might pay more, but you're going to get stuff done more quickly, and it's going to be done right. They're going to have the permits pulled and whatever you need.
Yep.
And they're going to have systems and processes in place to get it done.
I see new flippers or people getting into the BRRRR strategy when they're doing any kind of renovation on real estate. They just look at that number and I say, okay, this number is 10,000 higher, whatever. Your budget's 80. Now you're going to spend 90. What's your hold cost? Like this contractor's dragging this thing out. What's your holding cost on that money?
Yeah.
And people don't think about that. They just see that.
Right.
They just see that.
And there's
number.
many different holding costs too. It's not
Yes.
just taxes and insurance, utilities. If you're using hard money or you're using any kind of leverage, you're paying on that too.
One that we found out the hard way was all of that you just said. We did one in Milliken, 21 into 22. So we bought it from somebody who grabbed it from a foreclosure sale. He ended up making more just on the wholesale flip to us. And we were originally going to make 40 grand on it. It's down in Milliken. It was a turd, man. It was bad. It was ugly. And looking back, it was in a neighborhood of other not so great homes. And we did it up real nice, overly nice. But it was right when those rates started hiking, and we had the cash. Like we just parked the cash and we were doing it, and that slowed it down. We had it under contract. The from buying it to getting the renovation completely done was 57 days, and it was a lot. But we contract, so we're like, that's a good time.
Yeah,
the money's not out too far. So buy to renovate to get on the market, 57 days.
Yeah,
offer and under contract in 18 days.
Yeah.
So we're 73 days under that. Thinking of our whole time.
Yep.
And then we start kind of going back and forth. And I'm the realtor. And
Right.
I'm the realtor.
Yep.
And we can't come to terms on something because I'm like, hey, we can make 40, and we would have made 28. And there's a little back and forth. The buyer ended up not ultimately being qualified. But what I'm thinking is, I want to make 40. I'm not going to take 28. It's our first flip. And then she goes away, starts getting into the winter time. Rates start doing the thing, and then we're sitting there. And we're like, all right, we're going to make 40. We're going to make 38, 36, 35. Rates go up, things slow down. We're finally like, okay, if we get out of this at break even, we're okay. So just the time,
right?
The market can change the things you can't change. So we got out of this thing. I did a post on social. I'll have to pull it up, Joey, and we can maybe put it in here in the show notes. But I broke everything down. And Justin Morales jumps in, and he's like, told you. I'm over here eating Fuzzies, and I would have made 10 times the money eating my burrito over here. You should come hang out at Fuzzies and invest with me, right? Or go wholesale it. So it was interesting. I loved it. It was a lot of work. Great contractors. I was worse on the real estate side. I was getting, emotionally interested in.
Sure.
I should have just told myself, like, take this deal. If you're a Christian small business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. They are a Christian peer advisory community here in Northern Colorado and the Front Range that is designed to give you encouragement, support, and insight to grow your business with other like-minded Christian business owners. Not only are they a sponsor and a partner of this podcast, but I'm also a member of their community. Check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. If you've got junk in your life or business that you need removed, reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts. They are a full-service junk removal company, and they'll be able to take care of you at your home or your business to get rid of whatever you don't want. Check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's a million
a lot of things.
Million different things that go into it. It's not just buying it correctly and doing the rehab. I mean, there's many other pieces of the puzzle.
And having a good agent, if you do, that understands all those dynamics. Because I look at it, I go, who is the bad piece of that puzzle there? It was me, right?
Oftentimes it ends up being us. Yeah.
So question, because we were talking about the online community, and you've met a lot of the investors out there that have programs, and you've learned a lot, and you've spent a lot of time with them. Do you think a lot of that stuff is real, or that they're fluffing up and creating a false perception for people about how hard it actually is? Is there a disconnect between the benefit you can make in real estate and the actual effort that people need to put in? Because it all looks so easy. All this stuff does, right? These programs.
Have you ever heard of the dip?
I've heard of dip. I don't think it's the dip you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, probably not. Not. This is not edible.
Okay.
So the dip is, and this can relate to so many different parts of life, but especially for entrepreneurs, and especially if you got your hands in a bunch of different things or interested in different things. The dip is, you start with an optimistic view. It's called informed optimism.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're familiar with
This
this?
is Cameron Harold's entrepreneurial roller coaster.
Yeah, So
He puts it that way.
Yeah.
No,
So-
take us through that though, because I have heard of this.
Yeah.
one.
So
Yes.
the informed optimism, you're at this peak. You're like, this looks awesome. I'm going to go flip houses or whatever the thing is, right? And then you start to learn about it, and you start to like get involved, and then you reach what's called this informed pessimism. You're like, this is taking longer than I thought. This is more expensive than I thought. This is harder than I thought. And you keep creeping down into that valley of despair called the dip.
So informed optimism is you're hearing about it, you're building up. You're like, hey, babe, let's go flip a house, and you're at the top of that.
Yeah, you're like, this is
about
going to be awesome.
To crest over, and you're ready for the ride.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you come down, and you got that informed pessimism once you start to get into it. And you're like, this is more difficult than I thought. And once you slide down to the low point, the dip, that's the valley of despair. And that's where most people give up at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. You hear that, Joey?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the valley of despair, especially doing video, bro.
No, but for anybody, right? Because it's like you're so excited, your hopes and your dreams and whatever that is, and then you get your first lick or your first kick, just the reality. And then you're down there.
Right. Yeah. So once you hit that valley, that dip, that's where most people give up. Yeah. Okay. So, and then they go find that next thing that's going to make them feel happy and optimistic.
Next roller coaster,
right.
Next business.
Yeah, exactly.
Or realtors, the next brokerage.
Yeah.
They do that. They brokerage hop.
Every year or two. Oh, that
brokerage, it's you.
Yeah. So really to get past that, you just have to have those expectations. Like things are going to get hard. Mm-hmm. It is going to be difficult. You're going to go through pain, and if you can get past that, then you start climbing up the next part of that roller coaster or that hill where you have informed optimism, and then you finally have success on the other side. But you can apply that to many different things. Now, for someone like myself who suffers from shiny object syndrome, I've gone through this thing way more times than I want to tell anyone. But to your point about, courses, programs, coaches, all that stuff out there. Some of it has value, some of it doesn't. But the main problem really comes down to, can you get past that informed optimism or informed pessimism and that dip? Do you have the guts and the fortitude to get past that point? Yeah. The people that do are successful. So I think there are some people that have great programs, and I've been part of many programs, but some also are terrible.
But they all take that human condition, right? They hook you with, hey, would you like to have? They make everything get rich, wealthy, whatever, as quick and fast as possible.
They're selling the dream
with our system.
Yeah,
and you get that optimism. You get to that peak, you're so excited, and then you buy whatever it is, and then you get going, and then it's straight down.
Right. Yeah, because we get excited. They sell a dream. We buy an emotion, and then reality sets in.
So how do you get out of the dip? You talked about some of those things, but I mean, if somebody's in the dip right now, what is the one thing they must do?
Well, I think it's kind of knowing your inputs and your outputs, and to have accountability around that. I think that's really some of the big things. Like some people they're just gonna rhino their way through a wall no matter what, and they're gonna be successful. But some people might not have that fortitude, so they do need some help. And I would recommend coaching, accountability, being part of groups, shadowing people who are doing what you're interested in doing. There's different ways to do it, but it really does come down to mental toughness.
Yeah.
And, just knowing that I can get through this. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I just need to keep going. Got to put one foot in front of the other. Yep. Don't give up.
Question, because you're a psychology guy and you're in this pit of despair. Like what did I say on a podcast once? You're like a turd floating the circle in the drain.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of crap down there, right? And you're in a valley, a bucket, a toilet of pessimism. And if you come from a background and an upbringing and a story where people were pessimistic and that was put on you and programmed into you, like you can get excited, but then what's your ultimate default when things get stressful and there's pressure is pessimism. So I see these people, business sucks right now. I was coaching somebody the other day. Business sucks. Like, why? Because of this. Well, you said it sucks. That's great. I see it a different way. Well, everybody around me said it sucks. I go, well, stop hanging around with all the turds. Would you say that there's that psychological component? How much does that? Because it's great to say, work. But when you have everybody around you just sucking you down the drain, did you experience that? Do you see that?
Yeah. The longer I'm alive and the more I learn and things I do in business, the more I realize it is a mental game. You're playing against yourself. And I think most people don't realize that their thoughts really control everything. And so there's different ways that you can program your brain to have more positive thoughts around certain things, have mindset changes. But usually we do have our default programming. Yeah. And so sometimes we'll fall back into that. So we need to realize and be self-aware enough to know that that's going on. And that's why I think it's important to always have those expectations that this is going to be hard. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they don't, when they're selling you the course or the program or the coaching, they're not saying this is going to be hard.
So they're not going to buy their program.
Right. Yeah. They're saying this is how you get the Lambo. So, So if people were more honest in that, I think people would have more success. and set the right expectations.
How do you rewrite that programming? Or maybe talk about do you have any bad programming or programming that wasn't beneficial? And how did you reframe that, rewrite that for you?
One thing that I found in the past year that really did help a lot, and it just brought awareness. Awareness is like half the battle, because a lot of people are just not even aware that they have that bad mental state or the bad self-talk or things like that. So there's this book. It's called What You Should Say When You Talk to Yourself. And I read this book, and he goes into the science behind it, because literally you can rewire your brain by training it. And so since we have a lot of negative self-talk around a lot of different things, we can actually change that programming. So I read the book, and I'm a very practical person. I'm like, well, how do I do it? Like,
what are the steps?
Yeah. I'm like, what? Just plug me into the machine and give me some, And so he actually had an app, which I downloaded, and it's like $20 a month. And there's maybe a couple dozen different programs within it that you can reprogram your brain. So there's stuff around trauma. There's stuff around health and fitness, losing weight, sleep. At the time, I really wanted to lose weight. I felt like that had kind of gone a little too far. And so I listened to this every day for a couple months. No, it was probably closer to 4 months, because at the end of 4 months, I'd lost over 20 pounds.
Wow.
And the only thing I changed was I listened to that.
And it's just somebody telling you,
it's
fit, you're healthy.
And you can zone out, because your brain will pick up the signals. You just listen to it every day. I go for a walk or a run or listen to it in the car or before bed or whatever you want to do. Just got to be consistent, because the funny thing was, once I lost that weight, I'm like, oh, I'm good. Stop listening to it. Guess what?
Got fat again.
Yep.
What is it the Will Ferrell, or what's the movie? I'm great. I'm awesome. And gosh darn it, people like me. Or the little girl screaming in the mirror. Have you seen that one that went a little viral? There's a little girl with her mom screaming in the mirror I love those. The kids giving the positive self-talk.
Yeah.
But I heard something once, if the voice inside your head that talks to you talk to other people like that, other people would kick your butt.
Everyone's a jerk at that point.
Like if you wouldn't talk to your kids like you talk to yourself. Think about the way we talk to ourselves sometimes, right? I do it, you do it, everybody does it. Joey does it, we talk about that. You can't talk to people like that. Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about that app too, they actually have a couple programs for kids, because I can see some of the negative self-talk that happens within my kids' heads. Yeah. And so to try to reprogram that and speak more positively into them, both through me, but using the app helps them as well. So super important stuff.
Love it. Well, it's crazy. I thought we were going to talk more about real estate, and I love that we dove into this, because I love that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's important. If you want to be successful at anything, you got to have the right mental processes going on too.
So just the last thing I want to cover before we wrap up is you're a man of faith. We have a lot of listeners that are people of faith. They're close to it. And I used to think you had to separate and compartmentalize that from your business. I'm just doing business over here, and we do the faith thing this part of our life, or on Sunday or whatever that is. So how do you integrate faith? How's that played a role in weaving through your business?
Yeah. So I think what was great about getting into real estate as an agent first, I went to a Christian college, and so that alumni group I was part of, my broker, who I was under for 4 years, he was a great man of faith as well. So I got to see how he operated his business, how he treated me, how he treated his clients, and that set a really good example for me.
So he lived it out.
He did it. Absolutely. Yeah. Like he would even, I never had the guts to do this, but he would even pray with his clients, even if they weren't believers. Yeah. Stuff like that. He's like, hey, I just want to pray for you guys real quick.
You know who does that here? John Holston. Do you know John? You don't know John? John's a good dude. He was on the podcast.
Nice. I'll have to meet him.
Love that.
Yeah. Really cool. So having good godly examples, but from that example, and then at the time, the small group we were studying some book around a similar topic. And one of the things that I try to implement in my day to day is praying for people that I don't know. Like I might be out for a walk or a run.
Yeah.
Person passed by me, I don't know what's going on with them, but to pray for that person,
Yeah.
in the moment. So whether that's my clients, whether that's our investors, my partners, my family, or just strangers out and about.
I have a question. So John and I talked about that. Oh, that's cool that you pray for clients. If I was your client, you prayed for me. I'd appreciate that. But have you ever prayed for clients that weren't believers?
Right.
And how did they respond to that?
Right.
Or did
Right.
Or
yeah.
did you see that when he was doing that? Did he ever pray for non-believing?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And how do they respond to that?
I asked him that because I was curious as well. I'm like, well, he's like, well, yeah, they accepted it. I'm sure they thought it was a little odd, because probably no one had ever done that. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
But they appreciated it. Okay. They knew that he was living out his faith and he was being authentic. And they appreciated that. And they knew that in my mind, he was the best agent in the Chicago area, so he was getting they were getting the best care as well.
Really, really love that. Man, thanks so much for coming on. You are getting ready to wrap up round of funding, 5 million total, 1.2 left.
Right.
Must be accredited investors, right?
Correct.
$1 million net worth or more. If an accredited investor is going to know what accredited means.
Yeah, it's $1 million net worth, not including your primary net, residence, or if you're a high income earner, you can just Google the guidelines. It's like $250,000 a year. But yeah, $25,000 minimum to get into this. We've got about 1.2 million left to raise here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
this is we've been investing in Northwest Alabama for the last 6-7 years. And we've owned a few apartment complexes that way. We have amazing property management. This particular deal, actually our last 4 deals, you talk about deal finding, have all come from our property manager. Yeah. We don't even have to look. We just kind of once, twice a year, we're like, hey, you got anything? Yeah, I know someone who's going to sell. So that's how we've really found a lot of our deals. So we had closed on a 55 unit earlier this year. And that was really our first syndicated deal to date. So we brought in 50 investors with that one. We raised about $4 million. That's going really well. We paid out our first distribution a couple months ago, like right away. We closed in July. First distribution was out in October. Yep. It's going to be similar with this one, similar vintage, similar location, just a couple miles away from that one. And the big value add there is rents are low. That's really it.
So there's some ability to push up rents raise valuation.
Yeah. And because we know the area and we know the market, like at that other apartment complex, the builders of these 2 different apartment complexes share the same building plans. So that's exact same plan, exact same market. We're pushing up to 1,200 on our other units that we bought in July. And this one that we're buying right now, it's a newer build. It's only 6 years old. The other one's about 10.
Okay.
And rents are averaging $925. So we've
and
got
the ones
a lot.
That are now 12 over here. What were they? Would you bring those up to?
They were roughly the same. They were kind of like even somewhere in the 8s. And
we've been
we're getting up to 12. Yeah. Okay.
And then this one is a newer one.
It's newer
at 9. So you could push 14.
The market's telling 13, us 12 right now, but we're definitely within the next few years that it's awesome. Moving that way. That market has no new supply. No one's building. It's kind of a smaller tertiary market, so it's not on a lot of people's radars, but we love it. It's a great growing area, just outside of Huntsville, Alabama.
Love that.
Yeah.
Do I have to do some SEC disclaimer that I am not an investor? I'm not invested in the fund. You can't make earnings claims. Invest at your own risk. How do people reach you to have that conversation?
Yeah, you can just visit our website, missional.group. And really, missional, people are like, that's a funny name for a business. We're mission oriented. So all 5 general partners, myself included, we're all, faith-based. Yep. And we've worked together and have owned businesses together and wanted to grow something more meaningful. And we kind of, 3 pillars to what we do. We want to provide great places for our residents. In fact, we were doing our due diligence trip just a little over a week ago. And at the other apartment complex, we had a food truck and we had Thanksgiving pies for everyone, and the residents just love that. So we want to provide a great place for our residents to live and call home. We want to provide, great returns for our investors. And then we want to give back in other ways. And so for every investor that comes in, we donate to a like-minded charity that they get to choose.
Really cool. Well, maybe we'll bring the Pour Into People coffee trailer down there. We're going to pick it up in Nashville. So I don't know how far it is from Nashville, but we're picking that thing up December 21st.
2 hours.
Hey, we'll have to talk.
It's not far. Sometimes I'll fly into Nashville instead of Huntsville.
Love that.
But yeah, missional.group. You can reach out to us there. Even if you're not interested in this particular deal and you just kind of want to follow our journey, just sign up for our newsletter just to kind of stay in the loop, because we'll have a couple deals a year.
I love that. I love how you're integrating your faith into the business, living it out.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's more about pouring into people than pulling in the profits.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to wrap up. Everybody wraps up the same way. You've got the statement on your card that you want to leave with the world when you leave it. And that's like a blue-green. You said blue. It's kind of green.
Yeah.
It's fur.
Yeah.
It's fur color.
Fur.
What do you got, Nate?
So this is a quote from Ed Milet. If any of you are familiar with Ed, he's great. And I don't know if this quote came directly from him, but I heard him say this quote many, many times. And it's that things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And if you think that things happen to you, you're the victim, right? But if they happen for you, you have gratitude. So it's a nice way to kind of shift that mindset that, you know what, this thing sucks, but it's going to make me a better person. I don't maybe know what some of the good is going to come out. But when you talk to a lot of people, about their past experiences and things like that, the bad things they've gone through, they're like, I don't regret, having gone through that because it's made me the person I am, right? And so I think having that mindset that things are happening for you instead of to you can really be helpful.
Well, Nate, thanks for coming on. That's a wrap.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Hey, one more thing before you go. Head over to my website, mattshoup.com, and make sure that you sign up for the free tools. I will drop you an email with a whole bunch of life, leadership, and business building resources that will make you better. And I'll also keep in touch with you with all of the events, experiences, and updates that I've got coming your way.